So once upon a time, I was fired from a job. Never thought that I'd be a person that would say that. I don't feel like I was ever brought up that that would happen to me, but it did. But I'm also here to say that it led me down a path that I never would have expected. And through that, I got to meet some really amazing people and do some really amazing things that allowed me to get that confidence back in myself. That I think I've come to the point in my life that I realize that we're not always a fit for a job. And sometimes that can be the hardest day of our life when we get told we're no longer a fit. But it can also be the most liberating, the most eye-opening, the most that you get to redefine who you are and what you want to do. And I think through that process, while it was really difficult to hear those words, it was a person's opinion of the situation and the circumstances, but it doesn't define who I am and my character, my values, and who I am at my core. And I think that part of the process that I had to go through and that I've helped other people go through as well when they're in that transition phase is separating some of those things. It's almost like sifting the sands, or when you're panning for gold, which I got to do one time. You're trying to find those little nuggets, and sometimes you'll get little shavings of gold, sometimes you'll get chunks of gold, and sometimes you won't get anything. But I think through the sifting and sorting of our lives and who we are and what we want, it allows us to come out the other side and create something new and different. And that's what I've been able to do for myself. So once upon a time, I got fired from a job. It was the best thing that could have happened to me. And I'm so grateful for those experiences and where it led me. I don't recommend it for everybody. But if you find yourself in that situation, it's not the worst thing that can happen in your life. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned from it. Well, I think we all ask ourselves, why me, at different times. I think, going back to that down in the dump moment, I asked that question. I couldn't answer it at that point in time, but now I can absolutely, with a lot of confidence, know, yes, it was me. I'm almost grateful in some respects that it was me and not someone else, because not that I think I'm better than anybody else, but I feel like I was equipped for that exact moment in time to be put in that situation and be able to come out of it. I can't say I knew that on my drive home, and when I was in the car going, what is gonna come of me, what's next? I didn't know. And like I said, I have this innate ability to, when I can get quiet and get myself centered and just truly listen to that little inner voice. It's like right now, I know I can make this work. I've got this inner calm that tells me just keep moving forward. Yes, you're gonna have days that are scary. You're not gonna know what you don't know. You're gonna question everything. You're gonna wonder, why am I doing this? But just keep taking a step forward. And it's just fear that's getting in your way. And I feel like the why me started and propelled me into that future that put me on the path that I'm on today. And I'm able to do a lot of really great things. And I feel like I'm in a better place to help people that might feel like they're in that situation of why me, why now? Or why me for this position that they're thinking, oh my gosh, it's the job I've wanted, or why did they ask me to take on this role? And they're searching in their heads, I don't know the first thing to do. And I feel like through having those experiences, I can operate from that place of, I've kind of been there, but not knowing everybody's journey is their own. And so I feel like I can at least take people through that process. And the why me just makes me better as a coach. I think with that particular situation, it's a little bit of an ongoing. I'd like to think that there was that moment in time where it was completely forgiven. I think we've all had situations where we didn't break up with the other person, and it was a work situation, but I didn't get to do the breaking up. I'd thought about breaking up, but I wasn't the one that made the final call, and there wasn't that closure that you might want to have in a conversation. There were just words, some very short words spoken. There wasn't an opportunity for dialogue and discussion. So my brain started to fill in the blanks, which I think we all do. When we get hit with news we're not expecting, we get told something about ourselves that we don't agree with or we don't understand. It's someone's opinion. It's someone's, maybe their belief or how they're feeling about a situation, but it doesn't line up with who you are and what you thought was the reality. The forgiveness I needed to happen so I could move on. And I did a lot of different things. I wrote letters. I burned those letters. I did ceremonies to help process through it. And on a given day, I can be taking myself right back there. It's probably one of those moments in my life that will stay with me forever. I'll remember the sights, the smells, the sounds, the actions, the words, how everything happened, because I've never experienced anything like it. And because it was such a big moment, I had to move past it. And the only way to do that is to forgive yourself and to forgive the person that was on the other side of the table having the conversation with you, even though you don't get an opportunity to look that person in the eye or to say to them, I forgive you. And I'm trying to forgive myself in this process because I believe there's two parts in those situations. And I don't think for a moment that I'm, 100% fault-free from it. But I do wish it would have had a different build-up to that final conversation. I wish it would have gone differently. So it's a hard one to talk about. Yeah, it's been a journey. It really started 3 years ago and hit one of those really low points. Sometimes you say you have to hit rock bottom before you can come out. And I did. And I truly, in my heart and my core, I believe that people are brought into your life exactly when they're supposed to. If you try to make it happen, it doesn't. And I was fortunate enough that the right person showed up in my life to help me get my confidence back. And that was going to work with Manoj Bhargava. He doesn't like the word thank you, but I thank him from the bottom of my heart. And he probably doesn't realize the impact that he had on my life. And it really helped me get my confidence back when I needed it more than anything. And being able to help him with restructuring some businesses, which were, again, some of the hardest days of my life, and having to let people go that, was something I've never had to do before. But throughout that process and all the things I got to learn with helping to start up some businesses, bringing a medical device to the United States for consumer consumption, I never would have gotten to do those things. And even when we decided that it was time for me to move on, I look at it as I joke and say it was our adult conversation, the big boy conversation. And we both had reached the point where there's not much else because we'd taken the businesses where they needed to go. And I knew it, he knew it, and we could sit across from each other at the table and say, it's time. And because of me getting that confidence back, it allowed me to feel comfortable in that moment that it was going to be okay. And I would figure it out. Of course, I thought I was going to go back into a corporate world. He knew differently. I called him in October of this year, which was a year after I left, and left him a voicemail message and said, damn you, because he doesn't like the word thank you, as I said earlier. And it was because he told me he'd ruined me for corporate life, and it truly did. But it's okay, and it's giving me so many more opportunities, and I have the confidence to be able to do this. And in some ways, it's being able to be at that low point and you figure it out. You don't know at that moment what that next step is going to be and how you're going to get out from the crater that you found yourself in. But there's always a way. And I was fortunate that the right people landed in the right opportunity, showed itself to me, and it took me on that journey and that path. And I don't have any regrets, even for the hole I found myself in. If that wouldn't have happened, I never would have met him. It never would have taken me on that journey, and I never would have started my business. So I'm eternally grateful for all the things that have happened in my life. They weren't always great at the time, but I'm grateful for them. Again, it happened over this summer. I remember being in a situation with a group of people where somebody said to me multiple times, "You don't understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur. You're not an entrepreneur." And each time I heard it, like the first time I heard it, because it'd been said a couple of times, I kind of sat back and I thought to myself, well, have I been an entrepreneur? Am I an entrepreneur? And then one of those times, it's like the third time you hear something, I lashed back and I said, look, I may not show up as the traditional entrepreneur that you might be thinking of and starting a business from the ground like I'm doing today, but I can't tell you how many times throughout my career I've been put in a situation where somebody said, we don't expect you to do anything with this. And I had one of those times where I had a project and there was, $10,000 in revenue left when I was consulting with a client. And they said, just make sure we can bill out that full amount in the next month. Okay. Well, by the end of that year, it was $1 million business. Blew the socks off of people. I remember the president of our company coming and literally handing me a check at the end of the year for the work I had done. And he's like, we never expected this to happen. We don't even know how you did it. And so I had to explain to this person, there's been times like that I have done it. And then getting to work for a very successful entrepreneur, over the last 2.5 years before I started this company, I learned so much about building a business. I think the big difference now is I don't have a finance department and an IT department standing behind me that I could offload things to. I have to go find those people and hire those services myself now. But it also makes me a lot more specific about what I will take and what I won't. And I recently had to fire somebody that was doing work for me that actually didn't deliver the work when they told me they would. So I know how to run a business, and I've done it for other companies, but I've always viewed myself as an entrepreneur because I've had those situations and those projects that no one thought could be successful, that were those uphill battles. And I would surround myself with the right people. I was fortunate to have amazing teams in my career. I know I can do this, no doubt. So I can't wait a few years from now to go back and show that person I did it. January of 2020, I was in Grand Rapids. I had just completed a Dare to Lead program with a group called AG Collaborative. And the final exercise in this program is by Brene Brown. A lot of people know Brene's work. I've always wanted to participate in it. I went to learn because I thought, well, maybe I'll facilitate it someday. So the final exercise that you end up doing in the class is taking everything you learned about shame and vulnerability and being authentic. And the last exercise is kind of to jump into what you want to do next. What action are you going to take? And I remember for the very first time jumping into and saying, I'm going to start Talent Activators. It's going to be my company. And I left there and I went to meet with another friend of mine that was in Grand Rapids named Sabrina Kinkle. And I walked into her office and I said, I'm starting my own business. And she lit up like a Christmas tree. And she was so excited and she's jumping up and down and she's celebrating it with me. And I was like, okay, I was excited, but it's so great to see somebody else be that excited for me. And I'd heard it from a lot of other people that you should do your own business. here I am, and now I'm doing it. And I think that was the big turning point for me, is like, I can absolutely do this. And so I'm not looking back, I'm just looking forward to what's ahead. So I would say that the biggest factor for me has been watching leaders go through this transformation that occurs, through the conversations and coaching that we've done, or watching them get developed. So more recently, I actually did a group coaching session and had two people that I've known for a long time. And we went through an exercise to help them really link up their values to their mission and vision and what they wanted to do. And it was a really great exercise because I took them through this form and this process that I use. They had no idea, and it was really interesting because they kept sending me messages like, I don't think I did this right. I don't think this is right. I'm not sure that maybe I should do it over, or this can't be exact. And I was like, stop overthinking it, just send me the document. So they sent me the documents, and I put it together in this sequence and took the sentences and the things that they liked and circled for me on this form and built the mission and vision for them and sent it back to them. And we had a dialogue in this group conversation. And unbeknownst to them, I also had them do a values exercise at the same time. So I first presented them with the business and their personal vision and strategy. And then I asked them to tell stories about how this came out around their values. When they got done, they shared their values, and at the same time, they'd already had their mission and vision laid out. And it was like this epiphany and this like light bulb moment where they saw their values aligned to what they wrote on their mission and vision when they thought, I didn't do it right, it's not correct. And when those moments happen and they go, oh my goodness, it's aligned, and they didn't even realize it. Those are really special moments that I love to have.